Schaefer is the one.
Would you design your perfect beer?
You're in town, go ahead and ice it.
Falls City.
In the 1960s, America was bubbling with a variety of beers, each with its own unique taste and story. Among them were some hidden treasures that have been forgotten over time. These beers graced the glasses of beer lovers across the country. Despite their popularity and success in their heyday, these beers eventually faded into obscurity, overshadowed by larger breweries and changing taste. However, there's a growing nostalgia for these forgotten brews, with many longing for their return to the shelves. So let's take a journey back to rediscover 20 forgotten beers from the 1960s we want back. Number 1. Schaefer Beer. Schaefer Beer was a major player in the American brewing scene, brewed by the F&M Schaefer Brewing Company in Brooklyn, New York. Founded in 1842, it became a national success story by the 1960s, reaching its peak in 1962 with a whopping 12 million barrels sold. Schaefer was known for its crisp, clean taste and its eye-catching red, white, and blue can. However, the 1970s and 80s brought new challenges as consumer taste shifted. Schaefer struggled to keep up with the changing market and eventually fell behind. The Stroh Brewery Company acquired them in 1981, and later, in 1999, Pabst Brewing Company took over Stroh's, including the Schaefer brand. Today, Schaefer still exists, but as a Pabst label, not the independent brewing giant it once was.
Them guys ain't putting on like we all used to think. We sit around watching TV, drinking beer, we'd laugh. It must be the truth.
As the crisp taste of Schaefer beer evokes memories of its heyday in the 60s, thoughts drift to the fate of another brewing icon, Blatz Beer. How did these once mighty breweries succumb to the changing tides of consumer preference? Number 2. Blatz Beer. Blatz Beer, a Midwestern favorite, was brewed by the Blatz Brewing Company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Founded in 1847, Blatz became a major force by the 1960s, peaking in 1966 with a respectable 8.5 million barrels sold. Known for its easy drinking taste and its association with Milwaukee's brewing heritage, Blatz was a popular choice for many. However, the company's journey went downhill after the 1960s. A series of mergers and acquisitions in the 70s and 80s took a toll on Blatz. Pabst Brewing Company, which acquired Blatz in the 1950s, eventually phased out the brand altogether by the early 1990s. While there have been rumors of revivals, Blatz remains largely a forgotten name in the American beer scene.
It's draft brewed Blatz beer wherever you go.
Number 3. Burgermeister Beer. Burgermeister Beer was a budget-friendly brew that rose to fame in the 1960s. Owned by the Burgermeister Brewing Corporation, which Pabst Brewing Company later acquired, Burgermeister hit its peak in 1967 with a staggering 18 million barrels sold. That's a massive achievement, making it one of the most popular beers of the era. Known for its affordability and its catchy slogan, Burgermeister Beer, it's Burgermeister time, the beer became a go-to for many. However, Burgermeister's reign at the top wasn't meant to last. As the 1970s and 80s rolled on, consumer preferences shifted toward pricier, more premium beers. Budget brews like Burgermeister started to struggle. By the late 1980s, Burgermeister couldn't keep up with the changing market and faded from shelves, becoming a relic of the past.
You'll find out how comfortable beer can be. Berkey, the comfortable beer.
With the memories of Burgermeister beer's heyday fading into nostalgia, the fate of Drury's beer emerges from the annals of brewing history. Number 4. Drury's beer. Drury's beer enjoyed a loyal following in the Midwest during the 1960s. Originally brewed by the Geo Rural Brewing Company in Wheeling, West Virginia, Drury's reached its peak in 1968 with a solid 7.5 million barrels sold. They were known for their smooth, easy drinking taste and their iconic green glass bottle. Drury's even had its mascot, a little green kegman named Mr. Drury, who was a memorable character in their advertisements. However, the 1970s brought on hard times for Drury's. The company faced increasing competition from national brands and struggled to keep up. In 1963, they sold out to the Associated Brewing Company, and later the brand bounced around between different owners. While the Drury's name stuck around for a while, it eventually disappeared from store shelves altogether by the late 1980s. Interestingly, there was a revival attempt in 2011 by a Chicago entrepreneur, but it never quite captured the magic of the original breweries.
You're in town, go ahead and I sit down. You'll like the taste of brewery.
Number 5. Drury's Old Stock Ale. Drury's Old Stock Ale wasn't from a separate company, but rather a specific type of beer brewed by Drury's Brewery. It was a popular ale offered by the Geo Rule Brewing Company, which is well known for its Drury's beers. While exact sales figures for Drury's Old Stock Ale aren't available, Drury's as a whole reached its peak in 1968, selling a solid 7.5 million barrels. This ale likely contributed to those sales figures and was known for its rich malty flavor and its association with Drury's overall image of smooth, easy drinking beers. Unfortunately, Drury's faced challenges in the 1970s, including increased competition and ownership changes. This decline likely impacted Drury's Old Stock Ale along with other Drury's beers. While the Drury's brand tried to come back in 2011, it's unclear if the Old Stock Ale was included, and Drury's overall presence remains limited today.
Drury's, take a taste of that beer.
As Drury's Old Stock Ale graced the glasses of beer enthusiasts, its fate intertwined with another brewing legend, Falstaff beer. Could their story shed light on the challenges that breweries encountered amid shifting consumer preferences? Number 6. Falstaff beer. Falstaff beer was brewed by the Falstaff Brewing Corporation in St. Louis, Missouri. Their roots go back to the historic Lemp Brewery, founded in 1840, but they adopted the Falstaff name in 1903, inspired by the Jolly Knight from Shakespeare. Falstaff enjoyed booming business in the 1960s, rivaling brands like Schlitz and Miller. They peaked in 1965 with an astonishing over 7 million barrels sold. They were known for their easy drinking lagers and their memorable slogan, Falstaff, the refreshing taste. However, the 1970s brought a downturn for Falstaff. Increased competition and a shift in consumer preferences toward lighter beers hurt their sales. The company went through a series of mergers and acquisitions, ultimately losing its independent identity. By the late 1980s, Falstaff beer had faded from most store shelves. While the Pabst Brewing Company now owns the rights to the brand, Falstaff itself remains largely a forgotten name in the American beer scene.
And you're ready to enjoy it, satisfying to your man-sized thirst.
Number 7. Falls City Beer. Falls City Beer, a Louisville legend, was brewed by the Falls City Brewing Company. Born in 1905, it wasn't your typically family-owned brewery. Instead, it rose from a group of local tavern and grocery store owners who wanted to fight back against the local monopoly. With a name that paid homage to Louisville's nickname, Falls City, they set out to become a major regional player. Falls City enjoyed a prosperous run in the 1960s, competing with national brands. Their claim to fame was their light-bodied pale lager, perfect for easy drinking. As distribution opened up in 7 states, it soon hit a peak of 750,000 barrels of beer per year. The slogan, Falls City, Louisville's finest, captured the hearts and taste buds of many locals. The 1970s, however, proved challenging. They faced increased competition from national brands and a shift in consumer preferences toward lighter beers. Falls City, known for its pale lagers, struggled to adapt. In 1975, the Falls City Brewing Company was acquired by the Heilemann Brewing Company, and over the next few decades, the Falls City brand slowly faded from shelves. Despite a revival attempt in 2010, Falls City today remains a regional player, a shadow of its former glory in the 1960s.
Brew the global way.
New live taste.
Try it now and you will.
Number 8. Goebel Beer. Goebel Beer was a Detroit favorite brewed by the Goebel Brewing Company. Founded in 1873 by German immigrant August Goebel Sr. and Theodore Gorenfloh, Goebel quickly established itself as a major player in the Midwest. By the 1960s, it was a household name in Detroit. Goebel sold only 300,000 barrels in 1960. However, it was known for its quality lagers and cream ales with a catchy slogan, Goebel, the Goebel beer. They were a staple at social gatherings and sporting events, building a loyal following. However, the 1970s brought a shift in taste. Consumers began seeking lighter beers, and national brands gained popularity. Goebel, focused on traditional styles, struggled to adapt. The Stroh Brewery Company acquired Goebel in 1979, and Goebel's presence slowly began to shrink. By the early 2000s, Goebel beer had faded from most store shelves. Today, the Pabst Brewing Company, which owns the Stroh brands, still holds the rights to Goebel. However, Goebel beer remains largely a forgotten name.
Cleaner, fresher, true beer flavor of crystal.
After the memories of Goebel beer's heyday in Detroit fade into obscurity, thoughts turn to another beloved, which was Hamm's beer. How does the rise and fall of Hamm's parallel the fate of Goebel? Number 9. Hamm's beer. Hamm's beer, a popular American lager, was brewed by the Theodore Hamm Brewing Company in St. Paul, Minnesota. Founded in 1865 by German immigrant Theodore Hamm, the company grew from a small local brewery into a national success story. By the 1960s, Hamm's reached its peak, becoming a favorite at barbecues and social gatherings around the country. At its height in 1968, Hamm's boasted a whopping 7.8 million barrels sold, a testament to its immense popularity. Their smooth taste and iconic red can have made them instantly recognizable. However, the good times wouldn't last forever. The 1970s saw a major shift in consumer preferences toward lighter beers. Hamm's, known for their traditional lagers, struggled to adapt to this changing market. The company went through a series of acquisitions throughout the following decades, slowly losing its independence. By the early 2000s, Hamm's beer had faded from most store shelves.
Hamm's, tap and regular, is brewed natural, nothing artificial. The more beer you're going to have, the more...
Number 10. Hudepohl beer. Hudepohl beer, a Cincinnati favorite, was brewed by the Hudepohl Brewing Company. Founded in 1885 by Louis Hudepohl II, the company became a major force in the Ohio Valley by the 1960s. Hudepohl was known for its delicious lagers and cream ales, perfect for quenching thirst at social gatherings and sporting events. Their catchy slogan, Hudepohl, the friendly beer, captured the hearts of many Cincinnati residents. However, the 1970s brought a wave of change. Consumer preferences shifted towards lighter beers and national brands. Hudepohl, focused on traditional styles, found it difficult to compete. Unlike some of its contemporaries that larger companies gobbled up, Hudepohl soldiered on for a while, but the tide had turned. In 1986, Hudepohl finally merged with their competitor, the Schoenling Brewing Company. Even this couldn't save them entirely. The Hudepohl brand slowly faded away over the next few decades.
Isn't that something? Now Lucky opens without an opener.
Number 11. Lucky Lager. Lucky Lager, a Californian icon, was brewed by the General Brewing Company in San Francisco. Established in 1933, just after Prohibition ended, Lucky Lager rode the wave of renewed interest in beer. It quickly gained a loyal following, becoming the second best-selling beer in California by 1937. Lucky Lager undoubtedly remained a West Coast favorite throughout the decade. They were known for their crisp, clean taste and their classic red, white, and blue can standing out on store shelves. However, Lucky Lager's luck wouldn't last forever. The 1970s and 80s saw a rise in the popularity of national brands and new brewing styles. Lucky Lager, focused on traditional lagers, struggled to keep pace. The company went through a series of acquisitions, eventually landing with the Pabst Brewing Company in 1999. While Pabst still owns the Lucky Lager brand today, it's no longer widely available. As Lucky Lager's California legacy faded amidst changing beer trends, Narragansett beer stood tall as a symbol of New England pride. How did the crisp taste of Lucky Lager compare to the smooth lagers of Narragansett, each a reflection of regional brewing traditions? Number 12. Narragansett beer. Narragansett beer, a Rhode Island legend, was brewed by the Narragansett Brewing Company in Cranston, Rhode Island. Founded in 1890, Narragansett rose to become the #1 selling brand in all of New England by the 1960s. Their iconic slogan, "Hi neighbor, have a Gansett," became a familiar refrain throughout the region. Narragansett was known for its smooth, easy-drinking lagers and its deep connection to New England culture. However, the 1970s brought a shift in the brewing landscape. National brands and new beer styles gained popularity, and Narragansett, focused on traditional styles, struggled to compete. The company changed hands several times, and production eventually ceased in 1981. For many New Englanders, Narragansett wasn't just a beer, it was a symbol of home. Thankfully, the story doesn't end there. In 2012, a group of investors revived the Narragansett brand, and today it's once again brewed under the historic name. While it may not hold the top spot in New England anymore, Narragansett's return shows the enduring love many have for this classic beer.
Won't be long before you're holding a fistful of frosty flavor that lasts clear on down to the bottom of the glass.
Number 13. National Bohemian or Natty Boh. National Bohemian, or Natty Boh as it's affectionately known, was a Baltimore sensation brewed by the National Brewing Company. Established in 1885, Natty Boh became a deeply ingrained part of Baltimore's culture by the 1960s. As far as sales are concerned, nearly 90% of Natty Boh was sold in Baltimore, making it a true local champion. They were known for their easy drinking lagers and their quirky mascot, Mr. Boh, a one-eyed fellow with a mustache who embodied the spirit of lighthearted fun. Their slogan, "The Land of Pleasant Living," captured the laid-back charm of Baltimore. However, Natty Boh's reign wasn't destined to last forever. The 1970s and 80s saw a rise in national brands and changing consumer preferences. The National Brewing Company was eventually acquired by Pabst Brewing Company in 1979. Although Natty Boh is still brewed today under the Pabst label, it's no longer the dominant force it once was in Baltimore.
Cold and delicious, National Bohemian beer.
Number 14. Olympia Beer. Olympia Beer, a Pacific Northwest icon, was brewed by the Olympia Brewing Company in Turnwater, Washington. Founded in 1896 by German immigrant Leopold Schmidt, Olympia quickly gained a loyal following for its crisp, clean lagers. Their famous slogan, "It's the water," highlighted the pure water source used for brewing, which they claimed was the key to their beer's exceptional taste. By the 1960s, Olympia became a regional powerhouse, reaching its peak in 1976 with a respectable 3.1 million barrels sold. However, Olympia's journey hit a roadblock in the late 1970s. The rise of national brands and changing consumer preferences took a toll. Olympia focused on traditional lagers and struggled to compete with the lighter beers that were gaining popularity. The company went through several acquisitions throughout the 1980s and 90s, eventually losing its local identity. Production at the historic Turnwater Brewery ceased in 2003. Now, Pabst Brewing Company still owns Olympia Beer, but it's brewed at a different location and no longer holds the same regional dominance.
But you'd taste the difference if we didn't. So we do. Olympia, it's the water and a lot more.
How does this rise and fall of regional dominance contrast with the enduring popularity and cultural resonance of PBR? Number 15. Pabst Blue Ribbon. Pabst Blue Ribbon, or PBR, is a bit of an anomaly on this list. While it's included due to its surge in popularity during the 1960s, it's important to note that the brand never truly went away. Originally called Best Select, then Pabst Select, the Pabst Brewing Company, established in 1844 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, adorned its bottles with blue ribbons between 1882 and 1916. The exact reason for the name change to Pabst Blue Ribbon is a little fuzzy. The company claims it won America's Best at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, but some accounts suggest no such prize was awarded. Regardless, by the 1960s, PBR was a well-established brand known for its affordability and crisp taste. However, PBR's journey took an interesting turn. Unlike many other beers on the list, PBR never truly disappeared. Instead, it became associated with counterculture movements and budget-minded consumers in the 1970s and 1980s. Today, it's seen as a hipster favorite and a symbol of a more carefree time. So, unlike the others yearning for a comeback, Pabst Blue Ribbon remains a relevant player in the beer scene, albeit in a different way than in its 1960s heyday. Number 16. Peel's Beer. Peel's Beer, a New York favorite brewed by the Peel's Brother Brewery, was a major force in the Northeast during the 1960s. Founded in Brooklyn in 1881 by the Peel brothers, the company became known for its light, easy-drinking lagers. Their most famous slogan, Peel's Pilsner, "It's Peel Good," captured the essence of their brand. Peel's was a dominant player in the New York market and enjoyed strong sales throughout the Northeast. They were popular for backyard barbecues and corner pubs, building a loyal following with their consistent quality and refreshing taste. However, the 1970s brought a wave of change. Consumer preferences shifted towards lighter beers and national brands. Peels, focused on traditional lagers, struggled to adapt. The company was acquired by the Schaefer Brewing Company in 1972 and then later absorbed by the Pabst Brewing Company in 1989. Throughout these acquisitions, Peels slowly faded away from store shelves. By the early 2000s, Peels beer had all but disappeared.
And it does. Now let's make a few mouths water.
All right.
Hey, I asked for a better shot of the label on the 12-ounce bottle.
Peels tastes best of all.
Number 17, Red Top beer. In the 60s, the Red Top Brewing Company in Cincinnati, Ohio, brewed one of America's forgotten gems, Red Top beer. It was a beloved brew known for its crisp taste and smooth finish. Red Top beer gained popularity in the Midwest, particularly in Ohio, where it was a staple at local bars and gatherings. During its peak in the mid-1960s, Red Top beer boasted impressive sales figures, with over 500,000 barrels sold annually. However, despite its success, Red Top beer faced stiff competition from larger breweries and changing consumer preferences. As taste shifted toward lighter lagers and mass-produced beers, Red Top struggled to maintain its market share. Unfortunately, this led to its discontinuation in the late 1960s.
Tap has extra flavor, the heart only a fine ale can give you.
Try it yourself.
After the memories of Red Top beer's crisp taste linger, thoughts drift to the iconic Rheingold beer of New York. Could the nostalgic yearning for Red Top's return rival the hopes for Rheingold's resurgence? Number 18, Rheingold beer. Rheingold beer, once a New York icon, was brewed by the Liebman Brewery in Brooklyn. Founded in 1860 by the Liebman family, the brewery thrived for over a century. By the 1950s and 60s, Rheingold became a national success story thanks to its catchy advertising campaigns and crisp Pilsner. Their peak came in 1962 with a whopping 12 million barrels sold, making them a major player in the American brewing scene. Rheingold was known for its smooth taste, its eye-catching red, white, and blue can, and its famous slogan, Rheingold, the dry beer. However, the 1970s brought a shift in the market. Rising labor costs and fierce competition from national brands squeezed Rheingold's profits. In 1964, the Liebman family sold the company to Pepsi-Cola bottlers. While they attempted to revive the brand with new marketing strategies, it wasn't enough. Consumer taste shifted towards lighter beers, and Rheingold, focused on traditional styles, struggled to keep pace. Production at the Liebman Brewery ceased in 1976, and the Rheingold brand slowly faded from shelves. There have been attempts at a comeback in recent years, with the brand being acquired by new ownership. However, Rheingold has yet to recapture its former glory.
Man, it's happily dry, friendly and fresh day.
Number 19, Ballantine Ale. Ballantine Ale hailed from the P. Ballantine & Sons Brewing Company in Newark, New Jersey. Established in 1850, the company gained a loyal following throughout the Northeast for its quality sales. They enjoyed success alongside the company's other offerings, like Ballantine IPA, known for its unique oak-aged flavor. Ballantine even sponsored professional sports teams and had a memorable presence in advertising. The 1970s, however, marked a turning point. The rise of national brands and a shift in consumer preferences towards lighter beers began to squeeze Ballantine Ale. The P. Ballantine & Sons Brewing Company faced financial difficulties, and by the 1980s, Ballantine Ale production had eventually ceased. Despite its disappearance, Ballantine Ale remains a noteworthy reminder of a time when craft beers and regional favorites thrived. In recent years, there's even been a renewed interest in these forgotten styles, and some craft brewers have attempted to create beers reminiscent of Ballantine Ale. Number 20, F&M Schaefer Brewing Company. The F&M Schaefer Brewing Company, once a New York giant, brewed Schaefer beer, a popular American-style lager. Founded in Manhattan in 1842 by the Schaefer brothers, the company became one of the most successful breweries in the United States by the early 1900s. They were known for their consistent quality, easy drinking lagers, and iconic slogan, Schaefer, the beer of moderation. Increasing competition from national brands and changing consumer preferences took a toll. Schaefer focused on traditional lagers and struggled to adapt to a market seeking lighter beers. In 1968, the company went public in an attempt to boost resources, but it wasn't enough. Schaefer was eventually acquired by the Stroh Brewery Company in 1981. Production at the Brooklyn Brewery ceased in 1986, marking the end of an era for this historic brand. Nowadays, Schaefer beer is still brewed under the Pabst Brewing Company umbrella, which acquired Stroh in 1999, but it's no longer a major player in the American beer scene.
Is the one beer to have when you're